back to my web page. Today we are going to look at how to prepare a simple web page by the use of HTML. I know that majority of you are excited on how to prepare a simple web page by the use of HTML. It's very easy to learn. I'm going to take you step by step on the requirement, the steps you're supposed to follow, some of the things you're supposed to add until you are able to prepare attractive web page, maybe for your people, for your viewers, so that they'll admire the kind of work you have prepared them that day. So first of all, before we go much deeper to the whole thing, let's look at some of the requirement. What do you require to prepare it? Number one, for those with the PC, you require a notepad. But those maybe with the Mac, maybe will require the text edit. Very simple and straight. Having those two, maybe if you're using the first one or the second one, let's try to understand what HTML. Maybe personally you ask you what HTML, since maybe you're interested to use HTML to prepare your own personal web page. So HTML is the standard markup language for the web page, and it consists of a series of elements. The element usually tell the browser on how to display the content. The elements are represented by the tags. The tags label the pieces of the content, such as the ending, the paragraph, the table, the body, and so on. Actually, the browser do not display the HTML tag, but uses them to render the content of the page. Don't mind about what is tag. I'm going to tell you, to show you step by step on what is this tag, how to insert it, how to do this, and so on. So if you look at my page, you can say we have the opening tag, the content there, and the end of the tag. Usually the tags comes in pairs. Just as you can see, we have the first one and the second one. The first tag is usually in pairs, and it is known as the starting tag, where the other one is known as the second tag is the end tag. The end tag is usually written like the start tag, but with a forward slash, just as you can see this part. So the difference between the starting tag and the end tag is that the end tag usually has a forward slash. So just as you can see by my example, this is an example of a simple HTML. It has the head, it has the title, it has the header, you close the closing part, we have the body, we have the H1, we have the P, we have the body, and lastly the HTML. We are going to look at the meaning of each particular part. What does the head stand for? What does the title stand for? What does the H1 stand for? What does the P stand for? So the doc type HTML is a declaration which defines this document. The HTML part, the next part, is the root element of the HTML page. The head is the element that contains the meta information about the document. The title specifies the title of the document. Remember, you need each particular document to have its own specific title. The body will contain now the visible page content. H1, remember we can have H1, H2, H3, and etc. Define a launch heading. H2 is smaller, H3 smallest, and as you go down on, while the P will define the paragraph. So having learned all these, the introduction, at least an example, and the meaning of each part, now let's try now to move to the actual practice. Now you click your start button, go to your notepad. You can maybe double click, maybe it will take time to open. Now next you click the file, click new, then maybe you can directly pick this part. Maybe you can copy or even cut, and then you paste your work. Maybe you can do some changes. Maybe as you can see, we have the opening tag, the starting point up to there, that's supposed to be in pairs. If you look at we have HTML there, the opening tag and the closing tag at that point. Note that. Look at the head. We have the opening tag for the head and the closing tag for the head. Look at the title. We have the opening tag for the title and the closing tag for the title. Look at the body. We have the opening tag for the body, closing tag for the body. Look at the H1, heading 1. We have the opening tag and the closing tag. Look at the P, which stands for paragraph. We have the closing tag, the opening tag, sorry, and the closing tag. So what you should have learned there is that for every opening tag, there must be a corresponding closing tag for your web page to work. Maybe having done all this, maybe I can write something. Maybe you can do some changing here. Maybe I can write something like this is my page. This is my page. Maybe that's the title of my page. The body. Maybe I can write something about the body. But let's start maybe with the heading 1. What can you write about the heading? Maybe you can see, you can maybe write home. What about the paragraph? Maybe you can see it, write something about the paragraph. Maybe I can see like this. This is my first trial. I love what I am doing. I hope that it will be successful. See, it's a simple statement like that. Then, having done that, the next step is to save your work, so that maybe you can see whether what you have done for the last 2 minutes or so, whether it is going to work. So having done your whole thing, maybe of completing the whole part, now go to save your work. So you click there, click save as. Then when it comes to saving, maybe you need to be a little bit careful. Maybe I can save it in the desktop. And do I save it now? Maybe somewhere there. Then note the part. So mark the text markup language, don't forget. Then I save my work. Now let's see whether it will work. It is at this particular point. Double click. Wow, there it is. Very clean. The way we have turned it has come out very clear, because you cannot see the tags. So it is my hope that at least you have learned something small. So click down there, subscribe the button, so that you can enjoy other coming videos on how to prepare a web page. Thank you. Some of the rules maybe you may be interested to know before we move more deeper. If you look at rule number 1, HTML tag normally comes in 2 pairs. Number 1, we have this part, and these are the part. The first tag in a pair is the starting tag, while the second tag is known as the end tag. The end tag is how usual like the start tag, the start tag, but with a forward slash. Just as you can see this part, all HTML document must always start with a declaration, doc type HTML. The HTML documents usually begin with this part, the starting tag HTML, and ends with HTML with the forward slash. The visible part of the HTML document is between the body. Remember, as you can see, we have the starting tag and the closing tag, or rather the end tag with the forward slash. Just as you can see from my example, we have the declaration, doc type HTML, then we have the starting part, the opening tag. Then you move down once, you can see we have at this point we have the closing tag. Then we have the head of your topic or your page. So we have the opening tag and the closing tag. Then we have in between the title of your page. For example, let's assume my title is let's assume that is my title. If you look at that title, there is the starting tag and the end tag. Maybe maybe you can copy this part, assuming that you have already opened your editor. Then I paste the whole thing down there. Then the next step is to save the part. I do the saving. Then I hope that you still remember what we said about the saving. Then let me try to open it with my Mozilla. Then let me try to refresh and see whether it is showing anything. So if you look at my page, you can see this particular part. This part is this part. Maybe if you can make some little changes, maybe let's say trial 1, then you save again. After you save, you go back to your page, then you do the refresh. If you refresh, you can see that the changes have been effected. This part is this part. I hope now you can come up with a very attractive title for your web page. Now, having learned that, now let's go back to our notes again. Now let's move to something new. We have an example here, another example. Look at this part, the doc type HTML, we have the body. But if you look at this part, we have introduced something new, H1 and P. Remember that we said that H stands for heading, P stands for paragraph. So this is heading 1. Now let's try to copy this part and see how it will look like in our page. There it goes. And do the saving again. Remember that every change you make, you have to save so that you can see the changes. Now let's go to my browser and do the refreshing. If you look at this part has been deleted. Why do you think it has been deleted? Let's go back. Let's check. Now, if you look at this part, there's no part which shows that there is a. So actually what we can do is that maybe you can introduce the title part. So I go back to my notes. This part, there goes my title. extract from the head. Maybe you can see from the opening tag of the end, the closing tag of the end. Then in between we have the title. So I copy the part, come back, there it is. There it is. After having pasted the part, done the saving, then refreshed on my browser, the changes, you can see them ping at this particular point. So what have you learned? We have learned we have three parts. We have the title, we have the ending one, we have the paragraph, for maybe as many programs as you maybe you need to be seen in your work. So let's move now to H1 for the headings. So check my notes. HTML heading. HTML headings are defined with H1 all the way to H6 tags. H1 defined the most important heading, while H6 defined the least important heading. Maybe as you can see from what I've done here, as you can see we have this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 6. So as you go downwards, they become less important. So if you compare these 1 and 2, you'll find that 1 is ahead of 2. Now let's try to paste this part to our editor. There goes. Where is it? So I come here and do the pasting. Do the pasting there. So since I have my heading number 1, maybe I can delete this part. Now let me save. Good. Now the next step, that goes back to my browser, then I refresh my page. So what can you see? If you look at my page, is that this part which happened to by my ending number 1, the font is a little bit larger as compared to 2. So as you move downwards from 1 all the way to ending number 6, the font continue to become smaller because they are least important. The more important the heading is, the larger the font will be. So let's try to do something to make some changing with the number 2. Then I save my work again. Then after I save, I go to refresh. So maybe you can see what has happened. So as if I can do all the remaining 4, the changing will be as you can see. Good. Now since you are through with the, maybe hope that at least you have understood the meaning of each part from H1 to H number 6. So if at all you need your hope page, maybe you have the most important part, you may stick with the H1. If the heading is the least important in your web page, maybe you can stick with the number 6. So it will depend with the individual web pages. Good. Now let's go back to my notes again. So actually what we can do is that maybe you can introduce the title part. So I go back to my notes, this part, there goes my title, extract from the head. Maybe you can see from the opening tag of the head, the closing tag of the end. Then in between we have the title. So I copy the part, come back, there it is. There it is. After having pasted the part, done the saving, then refreshed on my browser, the changes, you can see them ping at this particular point. So what have you learned? We have learned we have three parts. We have the title, we have the ending one, we have the paragraph, for maybe as many programs as you need to be seen in your work. So let's move now to H1 for the headings. So check my notes. HTML heading. HTML headings are defined with H1 all the way to H6 tags. H1 defined the most important heading, while H6 defined the least important heading. Maybe as you can see from what I've done here, as you can see, we have this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 6. So as you go downwards, they become less important. So if you compare these 1 and 2, you'll find that 1 is ahead of 2. Now let's try to paste this part to our editor. There it goes. Where is it? So I come here and do the pasting. Do the pasting there. So since I have my heading number 1, maybe I can delete this part. Now let me save. Good. Now the next step, that goes back to my browser, then I refresh my page. So what can you see? If you look at my page, is that this part, which happened to by my ending number 1, the font is a little bit larger as compared to 2. So as you move downwards from 1 all the way to ending number 6, the font continued to become smaller because they are least important. The more important the heading is, the larger the font will be. So let's try to do something to make some changing with the number 2. Then I save my work again. Then after I save, I go to refresh. So maybe you can see what has happened. So as if I can do all the remaining 4, the changing will be as you can see. Good. Now since you are through with the, maybe hope that at least you have understood the meaning of each part from H1 to H number 6. So if at all you need to your hope page, maybe you have the most important part, you may stick with the H1. If the heading is least important in your web page, maybe you can stick with the number 6. So it depends with the individual web pages. Good. Now let's go back to my notes again. Ending. Our next part will look at the paragraph. Remember that all the work written, typed, is required to have a paragraph. Now let's see how to go about it. So you can see maybe we have the opening tag, the closing tag. Then let me copy at least one part. So I do the copying there. I paste my work there. Allow me to delete this part, hoping that you have already known how to go about it. I paste the first part. Remember that if I save and come back to my browser, then I refresh the page, maybe you can see what is happening here. So what do we need to do? We need to insert something in between the opening and the closing. Okay, let me go to one of my examples I've written so far. So let's assume this is the part I'm interested with. So let me copy this paragraph, copy, then come here, then I do paste that particular part here. Now let's save and see how it will look like. Okay, then I do the refreshing. There it goes. Very clear. So maybe to make it a little bit attractive, maybe I can change this part. So I go back to my page again. So maybe I can extract the whole part. The mother slab is comparable. Copy. Go back to my editor. Paste as my heading number 1. There it goes. Then I save the work. Go back to my page, refresh. Maybe you can see this part has been reflected on this other part. Now let's move to, maybe you need to introduce another paragraph to your work. So what do you need to do? Remember that you repeat the same procedure again. Opening tag with the P, closing tag with the P. Then you introduce maybe the part you want to make as a one full paragraph. So let me go to my work again. Then I copy this part. Copy. Then I come back to this point. Then I must paste the work in between the opening tag and the closing tag. Done it. Remember to save. I save my work. Goes to my browser. I refresh again. Very impressive. The work is very clear. Then if you can see my page, very clear. It has the title. It has the first paragraph, second paragraph. Now let's assume we need to introduce another ending. Maybe we want to introduce a less important. Maybe we can, what you can do, maybe you can copy, or let me write it. So it's supposed to be, if it is less important, it must be Then I save my work, go to my browser, I refresh my page. Maybe you can see. Now let's introduce another paragraph down here. So I'll do that part. So let me introduce another paragraph. Then the closing of the paragraph. So welcome back to my tutorial. My name as usual is Stanley. Today we are going to look at how to introduce an image and a link to your page. So far we have covered how to introduce the heading, how to introduce the paragraph, and also the title. So I hope that at least you can prepare your whole page having those three basic things. So as usual, the first thing to do is you save your work. Then maybe let's go at maybe insert image. That is the name of my file. I need to check the type, the HTML. Then I save my work down there. Now the next step, maybe I can introduce maybe on this part, maybe I can introduce the title. The title could be insert an image. Insert an image. Then as usual, I need to close my work. Then I save my work again. Maybe I can minimize this part. Then I double click on this part. Then down there, double click on the web browser. So if you look at this one, you can see maybe the title. This is this part. We have this part and this other part. We have the paragraph, but since it is not our point of interest in our today lesson, maybe you can get rid of them. Now let's see how to insert an image. So as usual, you start with that part. Then we have that part that will start for image. Then we have src, which start for the source. Then we have the equal sign, those two parts. Then you need to state the origin where your image is stored. If I look at my image, it is stored at which part? This is my image. It is at the desktop. The image is saved as Stanley. So what I will need to do is that when it comes to the name, maybe I can write Stanley there. The Stanley is supposed to be, the image format is a JPEG. Then my work will end there. Now let's see. Then I do the saving. I'll save my work. Then after saving, let's see how it will look like in this part. So something is missing in my work. Let's get back to the editor. So if I check this part, it's Stanley JPEG. Now let me see how I've saved my image. So there it is. If I check at this part, it is a JPEG file. So we need to have the same word. So I'll come and add it there. Then I save my work again. Now let me see whether the effect has been effected on my work. Exactly, there goes an image on my web page. But if you look at that particular image, is a little bit large. It is impossible for you to get a web page with such big image. So we need to do something in terms of the width and the height. So what will come, I'll go back to my editor and do something on this parallel part. So I'll need to change the width of my work. So let's assume I need my width to be maybe 300, while the height be So my width is 300 while the height is 300. So I'll do as usual, I close that part, that other part. Maybe you can see what I've done, the equal sign, the opening quotation and the closing quotation. Then I do the same on the height, equal sign, opening, then closing. Then I save my work. Let me see. Then I go back to the browser. You can see what has really happened on my work. Simple. The image has reduced to the size I required. Maybe to make that particular work to look a little bit attractive, maybe I can introduce an heading. So we go back. I hope still you remember how to introduce the heading. So we have heading 1, heading 1, so maybe that is my heading. Then I save my work again. Now let's see the effects on the browser. Very good, clear work. We have the heading, we have the image. Now, already having done that, I hope that you can prepare a web page with different sizes of image. Now, let's move to introduction of buttons. Let's see how to introduce a button in our browser. There goes. So as usual, supposed to start with the button there. Let's call the button, what do you call the button? Let's give it a name like click here. Maybe click here. Then as usual, we need to close. Very simple work. Then I save my work. Let's see what has happened on the browser. Then I refresh my work. There goes the button. But if you look at the position of the button, maybe you may not be wishing the button to be at this position, maybe on the right of your image. Maybe you want the button to move from this point all the way to the below the image. So what do you need to do? Let's go back to the editor. If you look at my work, we don't have any paragraph. So what we need to do, maybe you can introduce a paragraph. There goes my paragraph. So this is the starting of the paragraph, this is the ending of the paragraph. Now let's save my work again. Let's see the effects on the browser. Maybe you can see what has happened. The button has moved from this point to this other point. Very good. Now what do you need? We need also to see how to introduce a link. Having already known how to introduce the link, maybe you can come up with having done already with the button, maybe you can introduce the link on our web browser. So my link I will introduce at this particular point. So it's supposed to start with like that. Then we have href. Then we have the equal sign. Then in between you introduce the link you want for it to appear on your web page. Then as usual, you close your work just like that. So let me try to extract from one of my web page. Maybe at least I can pick one of the videos. Then I get its link. Maybe I can pick this link. Then I'll come back to my editor and paste the link on this particular point. Having done that, I will save my work and refresh on my browser and see whether there's been some effects. So we need also to do something else. We close that part and we open on that other part. Remember to start with the opening and the closing of these two parts. Then I save again, then check on my browser for the effects. So we need also to write something in between this point and this other point. So maybe I can write like this. And I save my work. So I save my work again. So maybe you can see the channel, or rather the link has appeared on this other point. So maybe in the next step, maybe I can merge the link and the button. So whenever the people viewing your web page want to reach your channel, maybe they can click the button. So what I will need to do, I will merge these two parts from this point to this other point. So I'll start from there, then I introduce a button, and let me zoom in. So rather than having this as your button once, maybe you can say click here for the viewer to reach your page. Then I will close my button, then I will save my work, then I will refresh the page on this one. So here it is. So whenever I click on this point, because you can see whenever I'm here, down there we have the YouTube, the channel, or rather the link of my channel. So whenever I click this point, it will maybe take me back to my channel. So after clicking the button, it has taken me to my channel. Here it is. So what we have learned in our lesson today, we have covered three things: the image, the button, and how to introduce a link. So thank you for watching my tutorial. What I need you to do, you comment, you like, and also don't forget to subscribe, so that in the next video it will appear on your subscribed channels. Thank you. Have a great day.